He exclaimed that I looked like a walking skeleton and immediately went to the kitchen to cook me some food. When he placed the plate in front of me, I realized I had never tasted anything more delicious in my life. If this was what failure in life looked like, as my parents used to say, then I was glad to be a failure. I finished everything in 5 minutes, but before I could ask for more, Uncle Jeff served me another helping himself. After that, he sent me to bed. Later, we talked for a long time. When I told him everything that had happened, he just shook his head. Uncle said that if it weren't for Child Protective Services, my parents would have just thrown me out on the street. They only followed the law to avoid consequences. Uncle Jeff immediately enrolled me in school. He had no children, and after several failed relationships, he lost interest in marriage. He said he might consider surrogacy in the future, but for now, he was focused on work and making money. 2 years passed, but my parents never once tried to find out how I was doing. I didn't expect them to, but Uncle Jeff was outraged by their behavior. One day, he decided to visit them and took me along. Since his car had broken down, we took a taxi. When we arrived, both parents and Toby were home. Toby opened the door. He was clearly happy to see me, but didn't show it, afraid of how our parents would react. He just smiled silently and let us in. My mother was the first to speak. There was sarcasm and contempt in her voice. She asked Uncle if he wasn't tired of the burden that was me. That question hurt like a slap in the face. As if I were unwanted luggage everyone wanted to get rid of. Thankfully, Uncle Jeff didn't stay silent. He told them he brought me only so they could see how much better I looked without them. That, in his opinion, was the clearest proof of their complete failure as parents. My father replied that all he saw was me leeching off my uncle's resources. He said that if we had nothing important to say, we should leave. Uncle called him shameless and signaled for us to go. We left, but I felt heavy-hearted. I saw Toby, but he didn't say a word. I knew our parents had already turned him against me, and now he kept his distance. I'm 19 now and studying in college, but I'm seriously worried about my younger brother Toby. As long as he lives with our parents, he has no chance at a decent future. Update to 3 weeks passed since Uncle Jeff and I visited our parents. Yesterday, I went there again. After that last visit, I had been feeling deeply depressed. And Uncle noticed it quickly. As soon as he asked what was wrong, I poured out everything. I told him Toby always dreamed of a better life but would never get it while living with our parents. To achieve that, he needed to go to school, but our parents were completely against it. What's worse, my relationship with my brother was getting more strained, and I couldn't accept that. Uncle agreed the situation was bad but said nothing could change as long as Toby lived with them. I thought, if that's the problem, then the solution is simple: take him to live with us. I was sure our parents would agree easily. After all, they once wanted to get rid of me too. But Uncle Jeff anticipated my plan and told me the problem wasn't that he couldn't or didn't want to take Toby in. The problem was that our parents would never agree to give him up. Still, I insisted on trying. He said I could try, but he would no longer talk to them. So I went to them yesterday, and surprisingly, they weren't happy to see me. My mother wasn't home, only my father and Toby. I said I came to talk about my brother. I wanted him to move to the city and go to school. My father silently stared at me for 2 minutes, then asked, "Do you think I don't care about my son's future?" The answer was obvious, but I didn't want to start a fight. So I calmly said I just wanted Toby to choose his own path. My father instantly lost it, shouting that his opinion was more important than Toby's wishes. That was the real face of parental tyranny. He didn't even consider that Toby was standing right there, hearing every word. Toby is 15 now, and my father is repeating the same pattern with him as he did with me. He already forced him to drop out of school and is preparing him for a life he never chose. I don't know where I found the courage, but I'm grateful I told him the truth. I said that forcing Toby to follow his dreams would only make him hate our father. He just sneered and said the opposite. Toby would thank him someday. At that moment, Toby couldn't hold back and began to sob. My father looked at him, then turned to me and told me to get out and never come back. I stood up and left. Uncle Jeff was right. I'm not going to give up and let our parents ruin Toby's life the way they tried to ruin mine. Toby is 15 in 3 years. He'll be able to make his own choices. I just hope he won't break before then and accept their twisted worldview. As normal. Update 3. I'm 21 now. Financially, I'm doing well. But despite that, my heart feels unbearably heavy as I write these lines. You might wonder how I achieved so much in just 2 years. 2 years can change a life, can't they? I'm joking. The truth is, none of this is really my doing. My net worth exceeds $500,000, but I didn't do anything extraordinary to earn it. I just lived with Uncle Jeff and tried to forget I ever had parents. Everything was peaceful until I began to notice Uncle wasn't feeling well. I worried. But whenever I asked, he assured me everything was fine. His words calmed me until one day, he started talking about how important it is to stay strong even when alone. It felt strange, but I didn't think much of it. Then he asked what I would do if I inherited everything he owned. I started telling him how I'd set up an educational fund for children in rural areas with no access to schooling. While I was speaking, he began coughing. I rushed to get him water, but when I returned, I saw his hand was trembling. That's when I realized things were worse than I thought. Once the coughing fit passed, I insisted he go to the hospital immediately. But he calmly said everything had already been decided. He then confessed he had stage 4 lung cancer. He had undergone treatment, but the disease had only progressed. Then came the worst news: the doctors had given him just a few months to live. I would have given everything to save him. But he just shook his head. He had already consulted other clinics. They all said the same thing. From that day on, every hour felt like torture, knowing our time was running out. When he was hospitalized, he began putting his affairs in order. I told him I wanted to inform our parents about his condition. He forbade it. They had turned their backs on him while he was alive. He didn't want to see them as he died. He told me he was leaving everything he owned to me. I thought he meant just the house and a bit of savings, but he revealed he had over $500,000, and now it was all mine. At that moment, I didn't care about the money. I broke his last wish and called our parents. I had to at least try. My father didn't answer, so I called my mother. When she heard my voice, she scoffed and passed the phone to my father. He said only one word: yes. I knew I had only seconds to explain. I said Uncle Jeff was very sick and in the hospital. Before I could say he had only weeks left, my father exploded. He yelled that after all the disrespect from Uncle Jeff and me, I was now calling to ask for money. The worst part came next. He said even if both Jeff and I were dying, he wouldn't give us a single cent. That man was a monster. I should have just listened to Uncle and not called. I wanted to find peace, but their selfishness was unbearable. I hung up. Uncle Jeff died this week. We talked about how I needed to be strong when it happened, but nothing could prepare me for it. Update 4. I disobeyed Uncle Jeff by telling our parents about his illness. But they didn't deserve to know about his death. My father said himself he didn't care if Jeff or I died, so they didn't deserve to be part of it. I had never even planned a party before, let alone a funeral. Luckily, everything sorted itself out. I informed his close friends, and they took charge of organizing a proper farewell. On the day of the funeral, not a single relative was there to support me. Uncle Jeff wasn't just an uncle. He replaced both my mother and father. He wasn't religious, so the ceremony wasn't held in a church but in a funeral home, where his last wish, a cremation, was fulfilled. When it was time to say goodbye, I was the first to approach the casket. Uncle Jeff looked like he was just sleeping. I would have paid anything for it all to be just a dream. I couldn't hold back and burst into tears like a child. Moving to a corner, I tried to collect my thoughts when suddenly I heard a familiar voice. Someone said Uncle Jeff had a kind soul. I turned and saw my parents among his friends, pretending they had been close to him. Grief turned to rage, and I marched toward them. I didn't know what I was going to do, just that they shouldn't be there. When I approached, my mother asked with feigned surprise why I hadn't told them about Jeff's death. I said he wouldn't have wanted them at his funeral. Then I asked them to leave. She said I had no right to decide who could be there. Just then, I was called. It was time for the cremation. I apologized to the guests and said this is exactly what Uncle Jeff would have wanted. Soon, I'll change my name. Toby is now 17, and next year I'll try to bring him to live with me so our parents can live out their empty lives alone. Thanks to everyone who supported and listened to my story.